on how we're going to run the rest of it. Still got 22 hours to go.
It is, and then the humidity on top of that. What's it like inside the cockpit of the car?
Not too bad. No, honestly, for us inside the car, it's pretty good. Porsche have obviously thought about that quite a lot with this new one, and the drivers are quite comfortable.
Good. We look forward to talking to you throughout the night and into tomorrow.
Well, I hope you can talk to me throughout the night and into tomorrow.
Well, we'll try not to bother you too bad.
Thank you very much.
I know what it's like. Thanks. Okay.
Yeah, we were watching the number 27 Toyota and Ukio Katayama, the former F1 driver, getting behind the wheel. And Alan McNish, one would suspect, has to be fairly pleased because while that stop and that interview was happening, his teammate, the number 25 entry, Jörg Müller, behind the wheel, is your new leader.
Yes, and the second Mercedes-Benz has moved up to third place. We still got all this shuffling around that happens during these pit stops. We still haven't got a real pattern for the race. Just the best of the sports prototypes remains the number 1 BMW. That's currently in 6th spot. And then we have to look a long way down to get the other BMW who had that problem. That's currently 33rd. So I think they lost a couple of laps replacing that bodywork and maybe that suspension part we saw. But work going on here on the Toyota. We're still speculating here exactly what happened to that Mercedes-Benz. I suspect a little later in the show, Calvin's going to go down the back of the Mercedes-Benz garage and find out a lot more detail.
Andrew, if there is a pattern to the thing, I think, first of all, it's the fuel usage. I mean, the Toyotas are looking good while they're on the track, but they're stopping too frequently. And the Porsche GT1s are starting to move up because of the fuel consumption issue. And I think, secondly, the other big issue, which will soon change, is that they did, as Alan McNish said, drive the first hour and a half like a Formula Atlantic race. That cannot last, and we'll soon see a change in the pace. Davey?
Yeah, we're down here at the moment in the Nissan pits, and, you know, again, everything seems to be fairly routine. They're putting the fuel in. They're getting ready to change over the Bridgestone tires. And one of the crew guys on the back is attempting to put on a gurney on the rear wing just to give it a little bit more downforce. There he goes. He's taking off the rear gurney flap, which actually the camera at the moment is onto the front tires. They're cleaning the windscreen. It's not a driver change, same driver, and everything seems to be, you know, fairly routine.
Yeah, I think you've got little Jan Lammers in that car. Just can't quite see from this angle, but Jan Lammers, a very strong driver in Le Mans. He's driven for Jaguar in the past, driven for a lot of big teams, and you know, I think Nissan are just playing it cool, Sam. I don't know what you think. You know, they're all running pretty close together. They're pretty good on fuel, and that there's the Müller, Trunk and Palmberger car that we saw limping in with also a blown rear tire, just like the Nick Ham car, and that's run basically by 3 German club racers.
Left side of that car was the damage on that machine, and they're getting it and taking care of it right now and chasing the number 28 Toyota right there. Familiar machine to American viewers, the Momo Ferrari, giving it everything they can. We'll be right back.
The number 25 Porsche of Jörg Müller has just been in for a routine stop. They actually had a driver change and also got in the car. But again, no major problems with the 25 or the 26 Porsche. Everybody seems very relaxed, and it's just a routine stop.
Azraoui, did you see him when he got to the point where he could get on the gas there? There was a big wiggle as he just dropped the hammer to get back up to pace. Patience is not a virtue of many race car drivers. That is, I think, the nature of the beast, but he was anxious to get back up. There's number 12, the Ferrari, the Doyle Risi Racing, entry of Wayne Taylor, and there will be a driver's change. Taylor's getting out, Poole getting in, Calvin is there.
Wayne Taylor jumps out of the seat and he works with Eric van der Poel. You can see there a little difficulty. They had to make some seat adjustments this morning. Fermin Velez is the third driver. He's very short, and it really is difficult to get these cars to fit all 3 drivers and make an easy, accessible seat change there. But this car is not getting the mileage. They're running about 32, 33 minutes, which probably equates to about 8 or 9 laps, and that's not the sort of mileage that they're hoping for. But their key here is just to keep the car on the track, not make any mistakes. They know they're really not a favorite for outright victory, but they're certainly going to be going for try and get a win in class. And Eric van der Poel and Wayne Taylor, these guys obviously run together all of the time over in the States in the sports car competition. We're a little tight here on the right front as they're actually doing the change to the car right now, but these guys will be a little disappointed. We'll try and get a word with Wayne on why they're getting such poor fuel mileage.
Before you do that, we haven't developed the Panoz story since we did it at the top of the show. I can tell you that Panoz currently, the number 45 car, the Brabham, Andy Wallace, Jamie Davis car, currently in 16th place, so they're obviously having a relatively gentle run thus far. I think they're lapping in the sort of 3:54, 3:55 mark. But right now, it's still that number 25 Porsche, which leads the Jörg Müller, Uwe Altson, and Bob Wallace will join that car a little later. That's first. Let's go down to David Jones. He's got Norbert Singer with him.
Hurry. Yes, I am down here in the Porsche pit with Norbert Singer. And Mr. Singer, it seems like nutrition is really setting the pace out fairly early. Is it just Porsche's plan, just to kind of just do the usual, just hang in there?
Yeah, well, we want to start the race not too fast and see what's going on, and then we will see. So far the cars are nearly okay. Car number 7 has a little problem with the boost, but the rest is fine.
But all your stops, everything seems very routine, and the Porsche camps has to be very happy at the moment.
Yeah, so far. But we have only 1 hour and 1.5 hours, so it's still a lot of time to go.
Yes, I know. They tend to set the pace a bit fast in the beginning.
Yeah, they tried fast, so we will see how long they go.
Yeah, well, good job for the Porsche.
Right at the front of this motor race right now is a big battle going on between the 36 car and the 25 car. In fact, the number 36 car has gone into the lead, the Mercedes-Benz. Let's go down to Calvin Fish. He's got Wayne Taylor with him.
Okay, well, Wayne looks like he's a little distressed right now. Obviously a difficult stint for you, Wayne. You're not getting the mileage with the car either. What is the problem out there?
We're having a big problem with the road holding, and we're not sure what it is, but it's very hard to keep the car on the road. So we've been trying different combinations of tires. We're not really sure yet, but it's very scary.
Is it just an overall grip problem or a balance problem? Is the car loose, difficult to drive?
Impossible to drive. I don't know what it is, whether it's aerodynamic or tires.
Obviously, you're not getting many laps per fuel load, Wayne. Is that because you're running out of fuel, or you're just bringing it in to change tires?
In the beginning, it was to bring it in to change tires. Now, that's the fuel consumption. That's all it'll run.
Obviously, you're going to struggle here for 24 hours, but you just have to stay in the game. I mean, obviously, overall victory is very difficult to achieve here in this class, but obviously, you'd like to win the class here.
Absolutely. We're going to try and go for a finish. You know, I didn't think we would be so far off the pace, but we're going to be there at the end.
Okay, well, these guys will go to work. They'll work with the Pirelli tyres and try to get a good balance on this car. And it's amazing how these guys can turn things around. They'll make a couple of subtle changes to the setup, different compounded on the tyres, and maybe they can get this car so it's more drivable. Meanwhile, an update on the Mercedes, by the way. I tried to talk to the crew. They're very tight-lipped. They're unwilling to give any information. However, one of the mechanics did mention engine. So it may not have been driveline like we thought, as in transmission. It's probably an engine problem.
Well, remember that is a relatively new engine. It's based on engines that they have had before. If you watch the ITC, the International Touring Car Championship, and the Mercedes that ran in that, they ran a V6 variant of this engine. It was a V8 with 2 of the cylinders clipped off. The thing that makes this car so quick is that all of the bells and whistles that very high-tech engine had are in place on this one.
Absolutely. It's an AMG engine. Mercedes use Ilma a lot for their Indy engines, their Formula One engines, but this is an AMG engine.
And we're watching that AMG engine powering the Mercedes down out of the Mulsanne hairpin, heading down toward Indianapolis. Arnage and the rest of the track. We'll be right back. Back at Le Mans, and your leader making its way into the pits, the number 36 Mercedes. Jean-Marc Gounon, the starting driver in that machine. We might anticipate a driver's change. And the car has made its way down into pit lane, working through, picking up that very slow speed limit and working down toward its pit stall. And they have had a great run, the tortoise of the 2 cars, and it is making its way down into the pits. Calvin, are we going to see a driver's change?
Yes, we are. Jean-Marc Gounon should be jumping out, and Christophe Bachou will be getting into the car. He has won this event before. He's also won the Daytona 24 Hours, so he's very experienced in these type of events. Looks like a pretty slick driver change. The seat backs that they have to change there, obviously, which are molded to the precise driver's physique. Very important, that aspect, that the drivers are comfortable. When they're doing an endurance event, you suddenly get into one of these seats and it doesn't quite fit. It's really going to cramp you up and give you problems over the course of 24 hours. So each driver typically has their own seat insert. They've done that very effectively. They're now working on the seat belts, and it's going to be interesting to see if they change here. Remember that the Mercedes do use Bridgestone tires. We've seen a lot of the other tire companies here today, Yokohama and Michelin and Pirelli's, particularly on Wayne Taylor's car, but a new set of Bridgestones will be going on. You can see now that there's only 2 guns on the car, so it's one each side. They have to do either the rear or the fronts first. They did the rears first on this one, obviously now going to the front wheels. Once they connect these, it looks like it should be a routine stop from here on out. They'll probably fire the thing back up, and then he'll be out of here. But good stop for the Mercedes team.
Superb stop. And one thing to note, we were talking about all of the things that the GT1s have in their favor. One thing they don't is the size of the tires. They run a smaller tire. We've been talking about the problems that the Ferraris have perhaps been having in terms of handling. Davy Jones, you have an answer?
Yes, I do. I'm down here with Didier Tays, and he just did a triple stint. And Didier, how was the car handling during?
Well, the car looks pretty good for me, and we changed different type of compound. We try a harder set because it's sunny and warm, and we didn't try that in the practice because it was not warm enough. But the balance is fine, and we're just running.
Wayne Taylor seemed to have a handling problem. He said that the car was just a demon to drive, but he was also able to only go about 8 laps, and they were changing tires with Pirellis each time. What about the Yokohama tires? I mean, are they just more reliable?
I think we're okay so far. We went to a harder compound, and it looks like the balance stay the same. You know, Morobaldi's in the car now. He's doing good time. And I think we're going to stay with that till at least the sun is done, and maybe go back to the softer tonight.
And as far as the Yokohama tires, I mean, with the heat, when it cools down, are you able to run a very soft compound during the night, or?
We hope so, yes. We have 3 choices of compound, and hopefully if you look the 2 nights before, by midnight it was quite cool, and hopefully we can run a softer compound and go a little bit faster.
Now, there are only 3 teams here that are on Yokohama tires. Can you get any feedback from them at all, or is it just your own program?
No, I think not yet. We can tell again, you know, we can maybe speak again tomorrow morning.
Yeah, okay. Have a good ride.
Thank you.
It's extraordinary to see the Ferraris struggle so when once upon a time they were the dominant car here. Look at that as one goes by. Slowly, they won 6 races in a row starting in 1960. Now they're completely outclassed.
They have a big problem too. Eric Van der Poel, hand up in the air, Andrew. He is suffering some serious problem. We may be about to find out what the handling problem was. It may be fairly deep.
Oh no, there's a rear wheel locked up there. Maybe he's got a puncture on the other side. He might have a right front puncture, which is jacking the weight across. The car we just talked about previously, the Ferrari, actually in 5th place in the sports prototype category, and in 4th place. Haven't mentioned it yet, the number 13 Courage. Just try and check out this.
The tire looks to be fine, but it does seem settled. I wonder if there wasn't something wrong with the suspension that has finally given way. As I was looking, and the tire looked to be fully inflated, but the car was still cantered a little bit down to that side.
He's got a long way to go through, too, all the way through the Porsche curves and so forth. He's about 2.5 miles from the pit area right now.
Good look at the 2nd place machine right now. Let's check in with Calvin again, who's with Wayne.
Okay, we're going to get a chat with Wayne here. Wayne, it seems like Eric has obviously got a major problem out there on the course, and maybe this relates to the problems you had earlier.
Well, it could be. Something's broken, and maybe that's why it was so undrivable. There was something really wrong, because I've never been as scared as I was out there. And, I mean, even in a straight line, it was hard to keep the car going, so something must have broken.
Did Eric give you any communication on the radio as to what was going on?
He just said that he thought he lost the wheel, but it looks like all the wheels are intact, but there's something broken in an upright.
Okay, well, they're going to bring him back in. Obviously, they have to be very careful, be very slow on the way back to the pits so they don't suffer any more damage to that car, guys.
And we've seen what happens when that lets go completely and the wheel folds up and what it can do. So good move. Van der Poel obviously caught it and is trying to nurse it home, Andrew.
Yeah, regular lead changes going on. Martin Brundle's back in the lead now. He has a 24-second gap now over the 29 car, the Thierry Boutsen Toyota. So Toyota's back 1st and 2nd.
And look who's 3rd. BMW, one of the LMPs, having a very strong run. We'll be back here to see how things unfold for this gentleman in just a minute.
Eric Van der Poel is in with the number 12 Ferrari, and it was basically they lost a right front wheel. It does not seem to have been any suspension damage, but this is very disconcerting for the driver to now go out there and run at speeds in excess of 200 miles an hour down that Mulsanne straightaway. Really, Eric is going to be taking it very carefully for these next few laps.
Particularly in view of the comments that Wayne Taylor has been making that the car is scaring him. Once Eric gets up to speed, it'll be interesting to find out whether the problem has somehow sorted itself out, or maybe the first wheel on the car was not set correctly, and they have now discovered the problem, Andrew.
Yeah, that's a real problem for them, but what's really impressing me about this race is the intensity of the battle. We're almost 2 hours in, and we still have 14 cars on the lead lap, and at Le Mans, that's a big deal. And now, of course, we've got the 28 and 29 cars. The Toyota's running at the front, and then we've got the BMW. I'm gonna put my money back on it, I think, if I'm allowed to do that.
And then switch is what you're saying.
And then 2 Porsches, and then the Mercedes-Benz, which was leading just a couple of laps ago. These cars, certainly the first 6 or 7, the positions are seesawing all the time, just depending on whether they've made a pit stop or not. So there is a tremendous motor race going on there. We see this BMW coming in now. The other BMW had all that problem. That car has moved up the field a little bit, and that's already up to 27. But this car coming into the pit is currently in 3rd place, and those boys have really done their job. Williams Grand Prix Engineering have put a lot of input. They've actually got a new factory. They've built a factory for BMW to develop their motorsport activities in Britain for basically the next decade. Not only this car, but many other cars too.
Well, and of course the upcoming engine for the Williams team will soon be appearing in that Formula 1 car. I think this car that we saw there momentarily in the pits has had as much to do with the Williams Formula 1 troubles really this year as the team itself, because they've diverted so much of Patrick Head's attention to this car.
Let's check down the pit lane with Calvin.
Well, Christensen has jumped out of the car, and it's the Englishman Steve Sober who's jumped in. He's been a long-time BMW pilot. He was here last year, sharing the car with JJ Later, who had the suspension damage and couldn't complete the show. But Christensen has obviously done a great job. The Yost team was so impressed with this young man. They brought him in last year, a lot of pressure on him. He started off slowly, but by the end of the race, he was running times faster than anyone out there, and they kept him in for up to 4 stints during the night. So, obviously, strong ties now with BMW, and they've obviously signed him up. Steve Sober, long-time sports car driver. He's got a lot of experience. He's out of here. And a lot of wheel spin there. Untypical, really. When you're running a 24-hour event, you really don't want to put too much stress on those half shafts, but Steve Sober is out of here.
Can I just pick you up on something there? You said long-time sports car driver. He has never ever driven in a race without a roof over his head. He's really a touring car racer, Calvin.
Well, he's doing a fine job as he's back out on track. And I always love to see that shot. The driver snaps the visor down on the helmet. It's time to go to work. It's time for us to go to work, too. We'll be right back.
Speed Vision's coverage of the 24 Hours of Le Mans is brought to you by Porsche, who wish to remind you there is no substitute, and Michelin, celebrating 100 years of innovation because so much is riding on your tires.
Welcome back to Le Mans. The number 2 BMW has just made a stop and is heading out. And here is the Momo Ferrari, the Clepiso machine, and it is Mauro Baldi there in the white helmet with the blue coloring as getting out of the car. He has stayed in the car since the get-go, and getting in, the team owner and one of the great gentlemen in all of motorsports, Gianpiero Moretti, will be behind the wheel here at Le Mans.
Yeah, currently running in 16th place there. Obviously, I think the Triple Crown's too far for them, but they're having a very good run. And David Jones is down in the pits.
Now, everything seems to be fairly routine. Moretti did get in the car, and he had a little trouble getting out because of one of the Porsche GT2 cars was literally just blocking his way as he was driving out. Other than that, it's just fine down here in the Ferrari pit.
That machine now makes its way out again. There looks to be, I was thinking maybe it was just hard acceleration at a certain point. There's a little bump right there as they come out of the pits, right when they get on the throttle. And obviously you want to get up to speed if there's traffic coming up behind you. You don't want to be an additional chicane heading into the Dunlop chicane. And he gets on it, but we can see problems at the front end of this machine. That's one of the Courage machines.
Yeah, from where we sit up here in our announcing booth, you can actually see that there's a pavement change just at the edge of the end of the pit lane. So that accounts for the little bump.
Just a little update on the GT2 category. The number 64 car, the Root Racing Porsche of Claudia Herc and Michel Ligonet and the Englishman Robert Nairn, that's gone past the Vipers again. You got Vipers 2nd, 3rd and 4th, but they are running very close together indeed.
and slowly. The Vipers continue to lap well off their potential pace, so there's obviously, I mean, as much as 15 or 20 seconds. We'll start talking about pace once we get past these first couple of hours, which obviously have been the time of the rabbit, and once things start to settle down, we'll see far more of the tactics planned by each team begin to unfold.
Problem is, we've seen a lot of those rabbits picked off too. I mean, they have fallen by the wayside in fairly quick order.
I'll tell you, I have a rabbit joke, which I will not tell now, but I threaten to tell it, and if anyone is willing to stay up for that session that comes on in the middle of the night when we're on the air, I will tell the rabbit joke at that point.
Sam Posey racer, Sam Posey commentator, Sam Posey stand-up comedian.
We'll see.
Can't wait.
Yeah, the garage we saw in the pits was the Frederick Ekblom, Patrick's guy. I'll try and put my teeth in for this one. Takeshi Tsushika. Is that right? No, I don't think so. We'll try that later. We'll get better at it. But that problem obviously there with that Cougar, and maybe we'll get a report on that a little later.
There you see the Mercedes out of the race where Bernd Schneider parked it, and now if you look at the pavement change, that's exactly where it happens, and that stretches from the pit lane right across the road. Just remember, these are public roads, not this part of it. The track is 8.5 miles. About 6 miles of that 8.5 or 5 miles are public road. The rest actually belongs to the Automobile Club of the West, the ACO. It's private property.
Let's go down to the pit lane. Davey is at the Yost pit. It's getting busy, Davey.
Yes, the number 8 poster just came in. James Weaver has gotten out. He's finished the triple pit. They've done the fuel. They're putting on the tires. Again, it just seems like a routine pit stop. Raphael is in the car. The number 7 Porsche Yost car is also in behind. It seems they're putting the fuel in the car. Apparently, the problem that they had earlier with the boost control is not a problem now. Whatever it was, they seem to cure it. Stefan Johansson is the car, and the pace has picked up quite a bit, and he is out.
Both of the machines are out, and, you know, people tend to forget, I think, Pierre-Henri Raphael has started, I think this is his 12th Le Mans. He is an established veteran of this class.
Yeah, a great racer, Pierre-Henri Raphael. Has done most of his recent work in a GT car, with a McLaren GT car. Had a very good finish last year. I don't think he finished second last year without checking the books, but certainly a very strong runner.
He also was very funny in the Porsche press conference. They asked him what he thought his chances were, and he said, well, last year we qualified 23rd and finished 3rd. We qualified 20 this year. He said, that really should mean a win, shouldn't it? Good humor. We'll be back at Le Mans in just a minute.
Well, it seems like there's a problem on the number 36 Mercedes-Benz now, driven by Christophe Bouchot. He took it out. He's not done many laps, and he's back in here. They're looking at a problem down on the left bank of this V8 engine, and they didn't put any fuel in. They immediately went to work in the engine compartment. It'd be ironic if this was actually a repeat performance of the problem that Schneider had. In fact, maybe they've actually got a fluid here, like they may be bleeding a system. He's shaking the steering wheel. I'm not sure if this guy has power steering or not, but he's shaking the steering. He says there's a big problem with the steering on the front end, indicating to the crew. Meanwhile, on the left side, sometimes there's actually a bleed nipple there where they can actually bleed the clutch or something. So it looks like there's several problems here potentially with this car. Meanwhile, they're taking the front end off as well. So at the moment, the Mercedes-Benz crew, this AMG team, are not sure where the problem lays, but we'll try and get an update for you.
Well, Calvin, in the Mercedes press conference when Norbert Haug was talking, he made the comment, he said, we don't expect this race to be trouble-free, so we're expecting problems. We hope we can deal with them as things go. I would submit, though, that he wasn't expecting to have problems of this nature this soon.
Well, no, I can't imagine that they were. They gave this race a bypass last year because they weren't sure enough of themselves going into it. So it was obviously a big step to come this year. But they were so successful in the GT Championship last year, dominating the action. You really expected them, Andrew. You saw all of that stuff. I mean, you almost see these cars and expect them to be invincible. This is quite a surprise.
Yes, you certainly do, but the cars looking invincible just now are the Toyotas in first and second places. Martin Brundle and then Emmanuel Collard now driving that number 28 lead car has got 33 seconds over its sister car, the number 29 car being driven by Thierry Boutsen. I think that Ralph Kellner's now is in that that particular car, and then the 25 and 26 Porsches, they're third and fourth, and then you've got the third of the Toyota, so they're running strong. The Mercedes you're looking at right now, that is currently shown in sixth spot, but it's obviously going to drop back. And then you've got the BMW, the number 1 car, and they're moving up very well. The number 5 Ferrari, our camera car, is actually up to 8th place, and a great job done by Bouillon, and now I think Vincenzo Sospiria's at the wheel.
Watching this Mercedes stop as well, Andrew, the crew have worked at every corner of the car, which leads you to believe that if it was steering or braking, Calvin was talking about being able to bleed fluid, brake fluid. Maybe they've got a problem in the braking that they're trying to solve, but they have been thrashing at that car, and it is still sitting in the pits. And meanwhile, there's the number 7 Yost machine. That was in just a lap ago, and Stefan Johansson bringing it back in. And this is certainly not routine to make a stop like this. Some problem developing. And Johansson now into the pit lane. Fortunately, he doesn't have a long way to go. Once he gets in, he can pull right off and stop right there. But this is not a normal stop, Davey.
No, it's not a normal stop. And, you know, Stefan has his visor up. He's trying to indicate to the crew. He's talking to them on the radio. He's looking over. He's putting his hands in the air like he just doesn't know what the problem is. In the meantime, they're making a tire change. They're working inside the cockpit. They're changing the black box. Apparently, it could be with the electronic system. The black top box is what actually controls all the functions on the boost and the electronics on the car.
Well, that's a potential ignition problem that they're dealing with. And Calvin Fish, you've got some information.
Well, they seem to be working on all corners of the car. Actually, Christophe Bouchot is getting out of the car right now. They took some pump or some ancillary drive off the rear end of the engine. That was the work that was being done there. And it seems strange, but down at the front end, they disconnected both of the steering arms, and they're now going to work in the steering rack area of the car. So he did indicate he had a problem with the steering of the car, and then the problem at the back end, I don't understand it. Unless there's two totally different problems, it really doesn't make a lot of sense at this stage, guys.
I think that that's maybe a pump. Maybe they've got some problems with the actual power-assisted steering on that car.
Obviously, it's sitting there, and they've got some work to do. They're going to continue to thrash the lone remaining Mercedes, so they want to get it back out if at all possible. And they're going to continue to go after it. Drivers out of the car. One of the Vipers is very slow. We're getting word trying to eke it down into pit lane. And that's number 3, Gianpiero Moretti. There's the Viper that they are trying to get down into the pit lane. It had made it into the pit lane entrance, so now the corner workers are going to, the marshals are going to try and at least help out, get the car down in the pit lane. But that was Gianpiero Moretti in the Ferrari who had apparently looped it and high-sided it on a curve.
Meanwhile, this is the Carl Wendlinger, Mark Dues, Patrick Huisman car. We think that Dues is at the wheel. That car was actually in second place in GT2. Big battle going on between the lead Porsche and all these Vipers.
One wonders, well, let's check out what happened with the Ferrari spin, Sam.
Well, it appears that he just lost it in a one-car spin. There was no other car near him that would have influenced that spin. Andrew, it looks to me as if the car, though, was not damaged until he made the mistake of turning and crossing the track and getting it high-sided on the curve. It looked like one dumb move followed by another.
Yeah, well, for Moretti, he's getting on a bit, isn't he? He's almost 60.
He spun it right near the end of the race last year.
Yeah, well, yeah. He's an old guy, you know. You're up in the booth here. You're his age, and he's down there doing it. And obviously made a mistake, but the car is beached there, and they don't seem to be pushing off at the moment. And obviously you've got this Viper. Here's the Reka mechanics running up to go and retrieve the car.
Also, you make a good point. I'm up in the booth just guessing. I have no idea what might have gone wrong in that car, and I shouldn't have laid it on so hard.
Let's go back down to Calvin, who's with Christophe Bouchot.
Christophe, what is the problem with the car?
I don't know yet exactly what's happened. I have just one light on the board, and I prefer to stop.
It seemed like you had a problem with the steering. They've changed the steering rack or taken that out, and they're also doing work at the back end of the car. Do you have two different problems, potentially?
Yes, we changed the power steering.
Okay, it seemed like he had a steering problem at high speed is what he was indicating to the team. The reason he had to get out is that the mechanic is literally diving in the footbox of the car so he needs to work in there, and Christoph was kind enough to have a few words with us, but a lengthy stop, but it does not look like it's related to the problem on Schneider's car.
It's interesting, you know, we see power steering, and obviously for the driver when it's working well, it can be a tremendous help, especially over a long run, but it seems to create so many problems in so many circumstances. And Davy Jones now. Davy, you're with the Viper?
Yes, I am down with the Viper. It's right at the entrance to the pits. Some of the crew guys have actually run down the pit lane to come here to assist, to help them push it up. At the moment, they're trying to push the car back. I'm not really sure what they're trying to do, but whether they're going to push it back up the pit lane or...
Well, Davey, I think the regulations here at Le Mans are so strict in so many ways. Maybe if it didn't enter the pit under its own power, it can't run. I mean,
I'm sure they're pushing it to safety there. Obviously, it was in the pit lane, and then the driver will be able to work on it. And the mechanics can probably, well, you see, they're just shouting instructions. They're allowed to do that, but they aren't allowed to touch the car.
Even if it had made it into pit lane, they can't run up and push it down to the pit.
The exact rule I'm not certain of, but I think the last few yards they can push it, but they certainly can't push it the length of the pit lane. And of course, in the past, mechanics have even motored out to certain places and dropped tools on the ground to help drivers, and they've even been caught for that. But that sort of thing doesn't happen so much these days. But I think that's the first chink in the three-car factory Chrysler armour there. So that's a bit of a disappointment. I think they saw that possibly as the fastest of the three cars.
You spoke earlier about the power steering issue aboard that Mercedes. Of course, it's not just to make the driver's life easy in the sense that they're not strong, they're immensely fit. It allows the suspension to be organized in such a way that it has a lot of caster, which stabilizes the car. 8 or 9 degrees of caster. Without power steering, really 2 or 3 is about as much as you could run, and the car would not be as stable under braking or going into fast turns. So it's not just an effort issue, it's tied in with the whole suspension.
Yeah, so running a lot of caster actually makes it very tough to turn, but very stable in the straight.
Very stable on the straight.
So power steering in many ways apparently a help here, and still not exactly sure what happened to the Viper. We do know though that unless the driver, let's check in. Maybe Davey's got some more information.
Well, I don't really have any information on exactly what the problem is, but it is Huisman that is in the car, and his belt buckles are all completely undone, and I'm not sure if they're trying to push it out of the way to where the driver, actually, Huisman is, I believe he's going to get out of the car, whether he can work on it or not. I don't know, they don't really seem to be doing anything.
Again, a little bit of confusion, it would appear. The crew, as you pointed out, Andy, they can walk around. They're trying to give him some help, but they can't. I mean, if they lean in and touch the car, it could be DQ'd.
Also, sometimes when you see the cars at the end of the pit lane like this, it may, of course, just run out of fuel.
Or the reason that they're not actually doing anything is that Huisman may be talking to the team manager, trying to make that decision rather than to the mechanics on the spot.
Huisman is a big Porsche racer. He won the Super Cup last year, which runs with the Grand Prix, but he's never driven a Viper before, but you know, he'll try and do his best.
And one of the Panoz is making its way down to the pits. A quiet but effective run for this small program. We'll be back to see how things turn out for the Viper and the Panoz and everybody else in just a minute. Welcome back to Le Mans. Look at this sequence here. Early in the morning, Sunday morning last year, a problem occurred similar to the Viper. The driver had a problem. He had to get into the pits himself, and he got a little help from one of the Speed Vision announcers on this site. Alain de Catenay, who was the pit reporter, had an idea for him.
Can you go tell him that, Alan?
I don't know if he's allowed any assistance, but I can try and tell him.
He's allowed assistance over the radio.
Le frein, mettez le frein aux mains. Essayez le frein aux mains.
And of course,
le frein aux mains. I'm trying to tell him to put the old handbrake on here.
See that, yeah.
Those old pliers are stuck there. Look at that. He's got the handbrake on too. That's brilliant. Look at this, look at this. Hey, he's a moving man. This is outrageous. He's scraping his disc on the deck, but he's done it. He's done it. He's crossing the line. Right? He's crossed the line. The mechanics have got the car. They're in business. Look at this. They're pushing it like mad now to get it back to the pit. That was amazing. He finally listened to some French, I think, and got the handbrake on, and off he went.
Well, that's the key, and that Viper is very close to that line if they could just get there.
But the other thing, do you know what happened with that car? It went on to win the GT2 category.
There they are celebrating. Look at that. He's going, thanks for the help, apparently. And there's the Viper. And again, they're not that far from that spot on the track. They're trying to figure it out. The driver working it over. Davey, what's happening down there?
Well, apparently they're going through it. It's something to do with the electronics of the car. You know, Patrick keeps going back inside trying to fool with the wires and the switches and so on. And Dudes is there trying to say maybe do something with the master switch. But, you know, they're asking him to push the car forward, and he just doesn't feel like.
Well, these cars have backup ignitions, and I mean, maybe they're trying to switch back and forth from the ignitions, but the drivers can actually, they could push the car, couldn't they? Let's go back down to Davey.
Okay, I'm here with Mark Dues. What seems to be the problem?
The engine stopped running, and we have an electricity problem. This is the reason for the stop.
Now, they won't let you push the car forward to work on it?
No, they don't want.
Not even the driver?
We are in discussion with the clerk of the course because we are in dangerous area and we want to move the car. If we gain 10 meters, maybe Patrick can push the car himself a few meters more.
Thank you.
Yeah, interesting guy, Mark Dues, because he is also a top rally car driver. You know, very few people can race and rally, but Mark Dues, he's done a lot of testing for Toyota. He's had a lot of rally successes, and he really is a very nice man indeed. And that's a big disappointment for that team, obviously losing time. But meanwhile, GT2 is still led by Vipers. The other two factory cars are first and second. They're pulling away a little bit for the number 64 Porsche.
Interesting, he said they're talking to the clerk of the course, obviously via the marshals, to try and find out, since it's in a dangerous position, if you have to push it, can't we push it forward, get it into that pit area, and then the crew can help and we can get it down into the pit lane and get to work on it. Interesting what's developing, Andrew. Well, we're going to keep you updated as to how everything unfolds here with the Viper. We'll be back at Le Mans in just a minute. Interesting developments. Welcome back, and that is the driver of the Viper in serious consultation once again with some of the officials. He pushed the car, boy, that's a good 100 feet anyway, and you indicate it's uphill a little bit. I think he may have just simply run out of steam, and he's trying to chat, find out what they can do next, Andrew.
Yes, I think that's a situation that, well, a lot of heartaches coming very early in this 1998 Le Mans 24 Hours, and he's going to go back into the car. Oh.
He's getting some sort of clarification, it would sound like, from one of the marshals, and back, no, he's going to try and work on it, apparently. I thought for a minute he might be getting back into push mode. And just a minute ago, watch what happened to one of the lead BMWs. That's the car in pit lane. Watch what happened, Sam. Well, we're watching him in the pits first. Here we go.
This is the Mulsanne turn, and you can see that he... Watch this. This is really fun.
Martini there.
He whips it. Oh, it's a shame here. Here we go. He whips it into gear and spins it around again and gets going with no trouble.
Okay, let's go down to Calvin.
Well, the number 2 came in. Martini got out, shaking his head as he walks back to his pit box, and it's the ex-motorcycle racer, Johnny Cicotto, who's now behind the wheel. He's obviously got a long, strong association with BMW, and this will be an important drive for him. He'll want to get this first stint underway, get a good stint under his belt, and see what happens. But there doesn't look to be any more damage to the car. They obviously had a lengthy pit stop replacing that nose section, but it does look like it's on there securely, and Johnny is out of his pit.
The thing that interested me when we watched that first replay was that the car was completely spun around before it got over to that curbing. He had spun big time. And look at that. There is the Viper, and the driver now is crew.
Yeah, well, he has to do that. Just trying to see what he's adjusting now. It's inside the cockpit. That's pretty unusual. Maybe he has to do that to get at the electric box or the computer box or something.
Let's go down to Davey, who's right, still on the scene.
Yeah, he's actually got into the toolbox and taken out a pair of pliers, and right now he is trying to take off the bracket which holds the black box down. The same problem that we seem to have with the number 7 Yost, that they changed that out. I'm not sure whether they have a spare right here to change it out or not, but that's what he is doing at the moment. Is he's trying to take that black box out, which controls all the ignition, the electronics on the car.
This is when, as a driver, you really appreciate mechanics.
Are you sure, Davey? Have a good look. Is that the battery? Because the box is the Motec, the one that has the Motec word on the right-hand side. So try and get your head in there and have a look. I think it might be the battery.
It's big enough to be the battery.
No question, and the way that it's bolted into place, that's a pretty substantial clamp that's over it. Yeah, there's the black box, you would think.
Yeah, that's from made by Motec. It's an Australian company, and well, big problems here.
Davey, what's happening?
Well, you're exactly right, Andrew. You know, it is the battery. I do see the ignition box with Motec on it now, but it is a big box that he's trying to take the bracket off of, and there is a positive and negative lead coming out of it. So,
Davey, you weren't wrong. A battery is a big black box.
you know, you're right, but I don't know what they're going to do once he gets it out.
Andrew's looking.
Well, if the crew brings it down to him, I suspect he can swap it out. It's just got to be the driver doing the work.
Yeah, just want to say what's going on in the race, because now the number 25 Porsche is just 2 seconds behind the lead Toyota, the 28 car. So a big battle going on at the front.
Let's go to that battle, as a matter of fact. There is your leader, the number 28 Toyota. And again, as you pointed out, it is very... well, short distance, according to the monitors, about 2 seconds. Looks a little bit further than that. Things may be juggling a little bit, but the leader now is coming up onto some traffic. Excuse me, that's the number 27 machine that we're following around. Currently 4th spot, and that is Ukyo Katayama, the former Grand Prix driver behind the wheel of that car, utilizing a bit of a double draft right there to be able to get around. Oh, that's pretty. 3 abreast down into the first turn. And again, now, at the front, we're down to a 2-second battle after over 2 hours of racing here in Le Mans. Welcome back to the trials and tribulations of Le Mans. That is the Viper once again, and that is the battery that apparently is the offending unit. The question right now, gentlemen, is can the crew bring him a new battery, and then can he replace it, or does he have to take the battery down to the pit, get a new one, bring it back?
I don't think they can, and also I think they're clutching at straws, to be honest. There may, of course, be a problem around the terminal area, but they definitely can't bring a new battery down there. And this work, and Heisman's looking particularly hot there now, isn't he?
Well, I'm under the collar, I would suspect, too.
Well, Davey?
Well, you're exactly right, Andrew. They can't have any external help at all. You know, even dudes can't help push the car, can't do anything until they get up into their pit box. So I don't really know what they're going to do. They're you know, searching around. Patrick right now searching around to see if he can find any other kind of electrical problems. But they certainly can't have any outside help or put in a new battery.
It is pretty clear indication, though, of just how badly you want to keep running this race, especially when you're vested like Chrysler is this year. They want a good result. The drivers, they've been gearing up for 24 hours of racing. You just don't want to go quietly.
No, you sure don't, with all that's been invested. And boy, when you're trying to do this kind of work and you're not really mechanically apt, it is so frustrating. You just wish you could get one of the guys that really knows what he's doing to dive in there.
Going through his head right now is, I wish I was driving a Porsche. He won the Super Cup race at Monaco. There's Eric van der Poel again, and obviously problems there, but I think Davey's down in the pits. Sorry, Calvin's down in the pits.
Well, Eric has brought the car in, and they obviously completed a full fuel load there, so there's obviously not too many problems with the car right now. Wayne Taylor came to the front of the car, he put his thumbs up, and Eric just kind of waved his hands like, well, it's okay, but he's obviously not very happy. Meanwhile, I think this is just a routine check. They're going to take the front wheels off, just make sure that there are not any problems there, and they're actually going to the fluids, so it looks like he may be doing a brake bleed. It looks like the brake has obviously gone away a little bit, and you see a little bit of smoke from the left front brake disc, obviously carbon they're using on this car here, and obviously a bit of a lengthy pit stop. This has not been a routine race. We've seen this team be so effective in the States, and everything that could go wrong seems to have gone wrong so far for them here today, and looks like he's going to be here for a bit longer.
Yeah, Calvin, and there is one Ferrari which is still going well. That's our camera car. That's still in 8th place, the Bouillon car, and Sospiri driving that at the moment, and that's going particularly well. Another pit stop just for a Toyota. They're going through the next sequence. That's the 4th place car, the Japanese-driven machine. But let's go back to the Viper and see what's getting on down there. There's Patrick Heisman.
He continues to try and just, look at Duez is the driver right there on the other side of the window, trying to give him any advice. trying to find out. Apparently, the battery, if it's not charging or it's going flat, they may be thinking there's a short somewhere. Maybe we can bypass something just to get it to life enough to get to the pit lane.
Yeah, he's got to get to that line at the start of the pit lane. Now, meantime, the two other Vipers are holding down first and second in this important GT2 class. But this one appears to be headed nowhere right now. Such a drama to happen right at the entrance to the pit is so doubly frustrating. I mean, he's 100 feet away, 70 feet away from the line that he needs to get to. The rules do not allow him to push the car or to receive any outside help.
He has found something. He's working with some sort of component in it to trying to adjust.
Yeah, that's something that they carry on the car. But David Jones has got another report from the pits.
Well, I'm just down here with the Viper car, and you know, he's frantically trying to beat the different ignition boxes, trying to keep going with the toggle switch to see if he can get any electric to the car at all. You know, they're just kind of in a stalemate. They really don't know what to do at this point.
Well, and you can see how hot it is, too, as he is sitting there. Believe me, folks, it is very humid here today, and now we're getting some of the cloud covers lighting up. You can see it's brightening up in spots, and the heat is starting to build along with the humidity. And sitting in that car like that has got to be brutal.
This isn't the sort of thing you learn, of course, in driver school. But sometimes when you're driving for a team for the first time, if your willingness to not give up can make very strong points as much as anything you do behind the wheel. Davey, how's he doing?
Electricity, so we have to sing it over.
Well, apparently he just said that his electricity has a bit of a problem, and you know, I feel for him in this situation.
The comment, I think, was great. We have to think it over. I mean, what we've done so far has got us nowhere. What options do we have? Sadly, the option might come up none.
I've tried A, I've tried B, I've tried C. None of it worked.
Well, he's not giving up, that is for sure.
Meanwhile, at the front, we have Toyota's first and second. The Porsche's just slipped back, I think, due to a pit stop. So this battle still continues between the Toyotas. At the moment, we've got Toyota's first, second, and fourth.
And hopefully, well, let's go back, and there is the Porsche currently running in third, and they are just clocking the laps off. Classic Porsche style here at Le Mans. After we've been following the action of the Viper and the Mercedes and some of the other cars fitting enough, we come back with some blues. It has been a little bit of a tough go for some of the machines here. However, for some, that's one of the Nissans, just continuing to lay in the laps, as you must do here at the 24 Hours. Let's check in with Calvin while we've been following all this other stuff. Calvin, other things have to have been developing in pit lane.
Well, that's right. The number 12 machine, the Wayne Taylor, Eric van der Poel, and Fermín Velez Ferrari. Eric brought the car in. He said that the car seemed okay, but they had some braking problems, and they had to do a full bleed of all four corners on that. They also changed the radio. It's like us getting a full service here, only 2.5 hours into this race. An update on the number 36 Mercedes. They had to push that into the garage doors, into the garage. I mean, the doors are down, so obviously a lot of work going on now. I'm not sure if the car's been retired or not, but they're working on it behind closed doors. So in the early going, we're seeing a lot of problems. Last year, we didn't see this early on. Obviously, as the race develops, you expect it, but in the first couple of hours, big surprise to see the attrition rate so far.
The Nissan that you see here is running in 8th place, I believe, and it is just turning laps around the 351 area, Andrew, which is very, very decent. And I think that everything we've been saying about the Nissan being a little bit off the pace, the race is ever so slowly starting to come to them.
Well, it certainly is, but the car that's impressing me is the number 1 machine, the BMW. Just made a pit stop while we're in the break. Steve Soper stayed in the car, and that car is up to its highest position thus far. It's actually in 4th place now. Currently still leading the number 28 Toyota from the 29 Toyota, and then the number 25 Porsche. That's the car that Alan McNish started.
The Nissan down into the first chicane, but again, problems continue for the Viper. At this point, the Nissan looking very solid as it works through that chicane. We were talking about the Nissan has done. This team, they learned a tough lesson last year. They came in with a car that was very fast, but it turned out to be fragile, at least at that pace. They have done an incredible amount of testing, and I think they learned their lesson very solidly last year, and I think they're running to a very prescribed plan at this point. Well, set a pace, stick to it.
Well, Andrew followed some of that testing. Andrew, why so much, and where did they do it, and how much? And it's quite a story.
Well, they did it all over, and they've been doing it ever since the race last year, because they were caught out last year by a very strange problem. They ran absolutely perfect when they came to the pre-qualifying, but the scrutineer said, we really think you ought to have a sort of trunk in the car, because the regulations say you need some kind of trunk, pretend trunk. And that trunk, actually, they put it in for the race, it upset the airflow through the car, and then all the oil radiators which were in the back there, they fell apart. But since then, they've just been testing like mad. But maybe we can go back and just catch up on this Viper story. They're still working down there.
Yes, they just seem to be talking to the scrutineer and the team manager and just trying to figure out what they could do. I think they're really in a stalemate at the moment. But, you know, they can't do the electronics in the car. And until they get it in a situation where they can work on it, there's not much they can do.
Well, and the problem is how do you get it to that situation? I think that's really the issue at this point.
As I said all through this transmission, the positions to the front have been seesawing. Currently, the lead has lengthened again to 21 seconds between the two leading Toyotas. Maybe we can just catch a bit of this conversation. Well, Heisman, being a Dutchman, speaks several languages. He's obviously proficient in French there. Just seeing the Road Atlanta on the side of that guy's hat there. This race, we didn't mention at the time, was actually started by the mayor of Atlanta, and then they're going to have this Petit Le Mans race in October at Atlanta, Road Atlanta, and the mayor of Le Mans will start that one.
Other developments as well that we can talk about a little bit later on with the owner of Road Atlanta and new developments. That, however, is one well-traveled course worker. The guy loves his racing. He gets around. We'll be right back. Welcome back once again to Le Mans. You can see the Panoz pit right there, running fairly well, 14th and 15th. The owner of that team, the owner of Road Atlanta, was part and parcel of a press conference with serious implications for sports car racing. It was made yesterday.
Negotiations and being very aware of the current situation in the United States, it was decided that we should move on and create a series called the American Le Mans Series. I have decided that I joined the fans. Why should our fans in the United States be deprived of this kind of show for no reason except for private agendas and special interest? We would like to have the Le Mans Series sanctioned by a unified sports car sanctioning body in the States. If for whatever reason they can't seem to do it, then we will offer this to any other sanctioning body that wants to sanction it. Our first priority, and it's almost like a free option for them. Get your act together and come and sanction this series. And if you can't, then we'll look at somebody else and see who wants to provide the sanctioning.
Well, Don, you just announced your new series, but is this a third series, or are you going to unify them all?
Well, I hope that it is a series that causes unification. It's an opportunity for the best cars in the world to come out and perform, and for the American fans to see them.
Fantastic news. His initiative, I'm sure, will help accelerate the whole process now of getting sports car racing back on track in America, and given us a huge incentive to get after this series, and obviously we're sanctioning, as you know, at the Petit Le Mans in October, and obviously we want to carry that forward into 99. So we're terribly excited.
I think that's very exciting, and hopefully that will unite the racing family in the United States and give Porsche and the other manufacturers who are interested in it a place to run in the United States, especially since we can use the same rules what Le Mans has in 1999.
I believe in that Field of Dreams movie. You know, if you will build it, they will come, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
Don Panoz, it seems to me, has given us in order one of the most exciting cars around in the last couple of years. Produced the electric car, which may get to run here next year, which could be innovative and have long-ranging implications. He's improved Road Atlanta and bought 2 other tracks, and now he's giving us a whole series. I mean, to me, this adds up to some kind of a hero.
Yeah, and he's only been in motor racing, what?
14 months.
14 months. Just to the electric car, which obviously didn't qualify for here, didn't pre-qualify for here. They are talking about running it at Road Atlanta. I was talking to Dave Price, the guy who actually was preparing that car. He expects it to run at Road Atlanta, so that should be something to see.
You know, interesting, in that press conference, at one point, somebody asked him, you know, it's great of you to be the savior of sports car racing in the United States. His response was, I'm not the savior of sports car racing. He said, he said, it will be the fans who are the savior of sports car racing. We just have to give them a chance. And I think that Don Panoz has just given the fans that very chance. Let's check in with one of his drivers, Johnny O'Connell, who's standing by with Calvin Fish.
Well, Johnny is waiting to get in the car. I understand you're going to be getting in about 3 or 4 laps. How are things going? What sort of pace are you able to keep up with the rest of the squad out there?
You know, right now we're running 52s to 55s in that area, and that I think is where the car's comfortable. I think, you know, where this the last 2 hours of the race, we could wick it a little, but there's no point doing that at the moment. The car's working fine. It's a cool day, so the temperature in the car isn't that bad, and you know, so far no worries with the Panoz team.
Obviously, you were slated to drive the hybrid car. It didn't make it through pre-qualifying. What do you think the true potential is of that innovative design?
I think there's a lot of potential there. You know, certainly a bold move by Don to try to do something like that, and you know, we're going to do more development work on it and hopefully get it in a few races this year. It's a really neat thing, though. I was very impressed with the system when I ran it, and look forward to getting in that car again.
You're back at Le Mans. How special is this place?
You know, to me, this is the biggest thing in the world. You know, as an American, you always want to run Indianapolis, but I think my true passion is for Le Mans. This place is unbelievable, and ever since that stupid movie, I think. But yeah, this place is great. I want to make sure that I say hi to my kid, Kaden, and Kelly, and Robin back home. I'm sorry you guys couldn't be here, but Le Mans it's unbelievable. The French people are great, but this circuit has such great rhythm, and it's very special.
It's time for Dad to go and earn his paycheck. Good luck, Johnny.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Well, the number 51 car is the car, the Viper, that currently leads the GT2, so that's certainly running strongly, even if there are dramas at the start of the pit road.
To attempt a totally conceptual description of what that electric Panoz is all about. When you brake in a car, you generate a lot of energy, and the idea is to try to capture that energy in electrical form, i.e. some sort of giant battery, and then be able to reuse it as extra power. And that's as close as I can get. Obviously, it's a far more advanced concept than that.
Apparently, the potential is there currently. It's a very heavy car, and that is the major problem they're dealing with. If they get it sorted, it should be exciting indeed. We'll be back. Once again, we are back at Le Mans, and that is the Viper, number 51, having a very strong run in the GT2 category. Problems for the one of the sister cars, perhaps, but the number 51 entry is really putting in a sterling drive. Oliver Beretta, Pedro LeMay, and Tommy Archer, one of the few Americans racing here this year. That team has produced a great effort thus far.
Yeah, certainly. Tommy was here for the first time last year, and just like Johnny O'Connell, he's really wrapped with the circuit. Obviously, they don't have the raw speed. You just saw the BMW whipping past. That BMW has dropped back now to 6th place, and the number 2 car, which had problems, well, that's still showing. I'm just checking the timing screen here. Can't find it at the moment, but certainly the number 1 car running strongly in 6th place.
Here in France, it's 4:47, 4:48, just at the point where the evening just slightly starts to begin to creep across these open fields. The beautiful evening light will start to happen over the next couple of hours.
The car we're looking at the moment is the Courage. This is the La Filière car. Now, La Filière is actually a French university of motor racing, and there's actually university students, mechanic students working on that car, and actually a top young driver, Montagny, who has just brought the car in. He is an absolute ace. He's leading the French Formula 3 Championship right now. And he's driving with Henri Pescarolo, who you remember, Sam. I think this is his 32nd Le Mans.
Yeah, but the most memorable one that I remember was after he won the race one year. He was caught in a speed trap, Andrew, about 10 miles outside of town, and they were busy finding the man who had just won Le Mans for the 3rd time.
Number 7 car in the pits there. That is currently in 16th position. The winning car from last year and the year before, Alboreto, Johansson and Dalmas.
One of the O's machines. Now we go back. There's one of the Panoz cars that is into the S's right after the Dunlop Bridge and leading into Tertre Rouge and onto the Mulsanne. We've been talking a bit about all the developments going on with the Viper that's been having its problems as we watch the number 7 Yost Porsche making its way out of the pits. And David Donnie, we were talking about one of the drivers, Tommy Archer, one of the few American drivers over here. David, another one, of course. David, first of all, any idea what's going on with the car having the problems down by pit in? What's happening?
Well, I'm not really sure of the exact problems. Apparently, it's lost power. That's the deal going on. There's a lot of conversations going on down there that I didn't feel it was right for me to step into, so I didn't.
Are you glad you weren't aboard that car? It's miserable when you have to try to fix something like that.
Oh, sure. At least they're in pit lane and not out at like the 7-kilometer mark or somewhere on the Mulsanne. So,
you've been out in the car. First of all, how's the track?
The track is very good. It's our car is very loose and oversteerish in the first chicane up here. You see, especially on full tanks, the car gets a real kind of tank slap with the rear end going around. But the first couple laps were a handful, but after that, it was okay.
David, we've been studying the lap times as you've been turning them in. It's a little bit slower than you did in qualifying. Is that because of the handling you've just described, or is that because you're running to a certain decided beforehand pace?
A certain decided beforehand pace, and I had trouble matching that pace because I'd either go too quick or too slow. The track is so long, it's hard to figure out exactly where you are on a lap.
David, just on the screen is the number 64 Porsche. That's the one that's splitting the Vipers. That's just the car that's in front of you at the moment.
Okay, yeah, I remember seeing that on the track, and I think I passed it. Of course, it's still ahead of us, and probably because of fuel stops.
How is the economy going right now? Obviously, you guys run a much more powerful engine. Is that going to hurt you?
Of course, there's no free lunch, and as they say. And the V10 is fantastic. It makes a lot of power, even with the severe restrictors we have. But it's still, the Porsches have a better economy.
Yeah, last year you won the North American Touring Car Championship driving for Dodge. That program evaporated for a variety of reasons that we don't need to get into. But it looked like you might not have a job for a while, and suddenly you find yourself driving here at Le Mans. I mean, from lemons to lemonade.
Yeah, it was a very last-minute deal as well. Dominic Dupuis, who was scheduled to drive in my slot, had a altercation riding his bicycle with a truck, and well, he lost, so he's not here. And well, actually, he's here down in our pit, but not driving. He had 3 hours of constructive surgery on his hand and arm. So, but a week ago Tuesday, actually at Lime Rock, I was visiting up there some friends, and that's when I got the call on my portable phone.
Wow. Great opportunity for you. You've been doing a lot of testing for the NASCAR trucks for Dodge, have you not?
That's right. Chrysler Engineering is involved in all their motorsport programs, especially the Viper. There's a bunch of engineers here. Everything from engine to chassis to electronics. They really want to develop their street cars and street programs and their people to help develop a better road car. And the same thing goes with the trucks. I'm kind of a Chrysler guy, if you will, and they're new to NASCAR, so they're really trying to develop that and be running at the front all the time.
David, you've obviously had quite a few laps in the car now. What is the toughest part of the track for you and the car?
I would say early in the laps, probably the first chicane, because this track, although it looks like a road course and you're in scenic country, it's much like a street course where anytime you make a mistake, it's going to cost you something, either in a guardrail or in a gravel trap. And you know, obviously you'd prefer a gravel trap over a guardrail, but both are very costly in your end result of the race.
You had told me yesterday when we were chatting that that there are 4 or 5 sections on this track that you get some serious speed going.
That's right. Each of the straightaways on the Mulsanne between the chicanes, you don't want to misjudge your braking at all. We're going over 190 miles an hour 4 times on this course, and that's quite a bit of haul in the mail for each lap. And if you mistake going to the 200 where you really should have gone started at the 300, that's not a good mistake to make.
David Murray commented earlier that the Porsche curves, when you make the turn into the Porsche curves, that it's much faster than it at first appears. Are you finding that as well?
Yes, for sure. The Viper is very friendly going into the beginning of the Porsche curves. We go in 4th gear. It's actually the end of the Porsche curves, the off-camber, which, as Sam asked before, is probably when the tanks get empty. That's where you really have to be careful, because also the tires are getting old and maybe getting a little greasy.
Track does present some challenges. We know you got to get back down to the pits and stay with it. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
All right, David Donahue in the midst of a great drive. Let's go down to the pits. I believe Davey is standing by with the Nissans, David.
Yeah, I'm here with David Fullerton with the Thomas Buckenshaw Nissan project, and we're down here in the garage. And obviously, David, the cars are running very conservatively. They seem to be running with not any problems at all. You really haven't done any races between Le Mans last year to this year, other than just a lot of testing. What you know, I mean, you've been with the project since the beginning. The cars were very, very fast last year, and this year you just really couldn't match the pace of the top running GTs, so you plan to kind of run as smoothly as possible?
Yeah, we've done in excess of 25,000 miles and 40,000 kilometers of testing since last year alone, and we've been working very hard on the reliability of the cars. All 4 cars are running really, really well at the moment, and showing it against some of the other manufacturers who both their cars are out of the race. So we're really confident. Cars are working well. The Nissan TWR with Bridgestone tyres, and we're hoping it's going to go all 4 cars to the end.
Well, you obviously have a very, very strong driver lineup, and you know, you've done a lot of 24-hour tests, for example. I mean, you know, it's just everything's running according to schedule, and you plan on being very strong at the end of the day tomorrow.
Yeah, you're right about the amount of racing we've done, having only had 1 race last year and 1 race this year. But we've got a very competitive teams who race each other at the tests. So we actually go for 24-hour racing against each other. So I'm confident the team's working really well. We're very early in the race at the moment, so we can't be overconfident, but I'm happy with the progress.
It's a lot of preparation for this race, and yet you just kind of run your own pace, don't you? Run your own race. A lot of preparation and build up to this race, and you just got to run your own pace.
You race Le Mans. You can't be too bothered about the opposition at this point in time. Maybe after 20 hours or so, you're taking a lot more interest in their progress. But at the moment, we're racing the circuit, and later we'll be racing the weather, I'm sure.
Thank you very much, David.
It's a pleasure.
Appreciate that. Thank you. In fact, you know, here in the Nissan garage, they are using the same engines, the same parts since they arrived here earlier this week. They have not made any changes to the car mechanically, other than just you know, trying to get the basic setup and make sure the reliability is there. Now we go up to I believe Calvin is in the Mercedes pit.
Well, the Mercedes garage is closed, David, but we managed to sneak a look underneath the door. And as you see right now, the number 36 machine, the sister car to the Schneider car that was retired early, this one is also out of the game. Looks like they've retired this car also. There's no mechanics working on the car right now. They obviously had a severe steering problem, as Christophe Bouchot explained to us, and looks like the day is over for Mercedes. So they started in certainly a shroud of glory there with the pole position, but they didn't last too long, and that's the whole thing about Le Mans. It really takes a lot of years, and they've been away for a little bit, and they probably need to come back next year with a different game plan.
Yeah, and I think Norbert Hauge will be catching the plane to Canada. And remember, you can see the qualifying from Canada live here on this station. And just to go back to the Nissan story, the cars are currently running in 8th, 9th and 10th places.
And doing a very solid job, and I think that speaks of how prestigious this event is. They don't race any races, 25,000 plus miles of testing. They want to be a factor at the end of this one.
The Great team manager Alfred Neubauer directed Mercedes to its first Le Mans victory in 1952. He kept his drivers to a strict 98-mile-an-hour pace, resisting the temptation to chase the leaders. Their patience was rewarded with a 1-2 finish for the new Gullwing 300 SLs. After decades away from the sport, Mercedes made its return to sports car racing in 1988, and a year later, the Mercedes Silver Arrows swept to a 1-2 victory at Le Mans for the Marque's second and latest win at the SAR.
So you see, Mercedes can win, but the people I feel sorry for is Ricardo Zonta and Mark Webber, that young Australian, because neither of them get to drive in the car, and they'll go home having said, well, we never actually raced at Le Mans. Zonta, the Formula 3000 standout who won the championship last year, and Mark Webber, who the young Australian's just done a phenomenal job in the car.
Two observations as well. One, don't count this team out. You have to suspect with the development they've done, they will be back next year, one would suspect. And secondly, keep in mind that whether or not that Mercedes was going to run in the FIA series was dependent upon how they did here. That may be delayed. The Panoz has made a stop, and Davey's there.
Yes, it has stopped, and Andy Wallace has just jumped out. Jamie's getting in the car. The fuel is going in. They have the laptop plugged in the car. Obviously, they're trying to download all the data acquisition. Andy Wallace is helping Jamie Davis get buckled into the car. You know, here at Le Mans, because they're not... Calvin, I understand you have some up further up.
Yes, we do, Davey. The number 2 car, currently driven by Johnny Ciccardo, they're pulling it into the BMW garage area. Obviously a problem with this machine. Looked like a routine stop, and then they immediately spun it around. Engine was silent, and they brought him in. No indication right now where the problem lays. They are, however, going to the rear end of the vehicle. They're trying to stop us from getting in the pit garage here, obviously, but we're going to try and get some indication of what is the problem with the car. And this is so reminiscent of the Schnitzer team, and last year with BMW, they had problems as well early, had a lot of potential with their car, as this one does. Brand new car, obviously, and certainly got some teething problems. We saw Martini obviously have some problems early in the going with some collision damage and suffering some frontal damage, but this one looks like it's in the back end of the car, could be a driveline problem. We'll give you an update shortly.
And once again, keep in mind, after that damage to this car, it seemed nervous from that point forward. Maybe something a little bit more intense had developed. Good look there at Andy Wallace, one of the drivers from the Panoz team, who has put in a good long stint. He is out of the pits, and let's check in. Andy is ready to talk.
Oh, hang on a second. I thought we were going into break. Hang on, stick with me. So, Andy.
All right, apparently we'll get back down there in just a moment and talk to them, but a good look at the BMW garage. That looks very serious, obviously. You don't put it into the garage if it's minor.
No, definitely not. A big problem for them. Andy Wallace, incidentally, now lives in Le Mans.
Oh, so he is local. All right. So while we watch what's developing with the BMW here, we're going to step away for just a moment, but somebody who perhaps should have stepped away a little quicker, that gentleman right there, a bit of a bounce. Welcome back to Le Mans, your leader, making its way down into the pits, the number 28 Toyota. And it has been a very strong car from the get-go. Martin Brundle started it, and Emanuele Collard, I believe, is the driver now. And we will see if we are going to have a driver's change. Certainly we'll be going after fuel, and we'll see if they take on tires. They've been able to go a couple of stints on tires, Henry.
They certainly have, and they're running very strongly. They're running away from the second-place Toyota. They're just climbing out, Emanuele Collard, and they're just buckling in the third driver in that team.
Let me stress again, this is a first-time team. I mean, this is all happening for the first time, and they're doing absolutely beautifully. They seem to be calm, they seem to be organized, and they have terrific cars. And, you know, everybody else who so highly touted coming into this thing is coming apart at the seams, and these guys are just running like trucks.
Yeah, Toyota have been here many times before. This is a new effort, but it's the first time that Team Toyota Europe have built the cars. They've always been built in Japan and run by Japanese teams in the past. This is Team Toyota Europe, who run the rally program, which of course is a World Championship rally program. And Calvin Fish is right down there amongst the Japanese.
Well, it looks like a routine stop, Andrew. Collard got out, and it's now the other Frenchman, Eric Hillary, getting in. We'll probably see him do a couple of stints, and then I think Brundle will be back in the car. But just amazing that this car is such a new project, and all three cars seem to be running faultlessly at this point in time. As I say that, they have got the other side up, but it does look like they're going to be closing the doors here shortly, and he should be able to fire it up, just making sure that the door is tight. And I think they just got some telemetry going in on the other side. Actually, it looked like it might have been actually a little water going into the system. And Eric Hillary has it fired up, and he's going up this as we speak.
Well, we had heard Martin Brundle say earlier that he was grinning very early in this race because he just liked what was developing. And he had said earlier, people were questioning, why would you leave Nissan with 25,000 plus miles of testing and development and go to a brand new team? When the cars showed up at pre-qualifying, he said, now you've seen the cars and you've seen what they can do. Answer your question?
He also happens to be a Toyota dealer. Yeah, one of the biggest in Britain.
Yeah, and he had a miserable time with the Nissan. Let's go down now. Andy Wallace is standing by with Davy Jones. Davy?
Yeah, Andy, you just got out of the car. Everything seemed to be going well with the car, pretty routine.
Well, Davey, we put the race engine in, obviously, for the race, and we hadn't run it until the warm-up this morning. We've got a very slight problem with the mapping on the engine. It's not as clean as we'd like it to be. So a bit too much fuel, more than we'd like, and we've not quite got the horsepower, but each time we stop we're doing some adjustments to it, and I hope that after a few hours time we should get it absolutely running perfectly. The rest of the car's perfect, brakes, tyres, absolutely superb.
The gearbox, no problem.
It's sweet as it's ever been.
Really? Now I understand your gearbox is a shift with no lift.
Excuse me, Davey?
It's a shift with no lift.
Yeah, that's correct. What you have to do, you just plant your foot on the throttle, and when all the lights come on to tell you to shift, you just pull the lever, you get the next gear, piece of cake. Even Grandma could do it.
So do you have to use the clutch on the up change as well as the down change?
You don't use the clutch at all on the up change. Foot on the throttle, no clutch, just pull the lever, and there's a sensor in the lever that sees you want to change gear, and it interrupts the engine slightly in order for it to change gear. It's absolutely superb.
So the car comfortable to drive, no the heat inside the cockpit?
So far it's good, but I've only done a couple of hours. I'd say, as you know yourself, Davey, a few hours into the race it's going to be hot, but now it's fine.
Yeah, well, good. Thanks, Andy. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks a lot.
Andy Wallace, of course, one of the few drivers, I'm sorry, Sam, who's won all three of the big endurance races. He's won at Daytona, he's won at Sebring, and he has one here.
Exactly. He runs 15th right now in the Panoz, which is an excellent placing just 3 hours and 7 minutes into this race. They'll be moving up. Very good report.
Again, the number 28 Toyota you're watching right there continues to lead. It's down to something in the order of 20 seconds between the two lead Toyotas. The battle, the intra-team battle, is a good one at this stage. There's the Toyota sweeping down toward Indianapolis. We'll be back. Welcome back to Le Mans, 3 hours and about 12 minutes into the 24-hour classic event. Good news on one side here is the weather is starting to improve a little bit. Patches of blue developing, and of course that means that we might get a little bit of heat, but better than rain and anything else like that. So things looking very good. The action continues to be exciting, and we've got some good racing, Andrew, in the top 5 at this point.
Oh, we most certainly have. And now the Porsche has just split the Toyotas again. The number 25 Porsche, the Alan McNish car, it is really going strong. It's still seesawing between the pit stops. A great race going on. We've got 7 or 8 cars still on the lead lap, so a terrific Le Mans in prospect. Just 3 hours in the book, of course.
And the interesting story, one of them anyway, continues to be the progress and development of the LMP BMW. The prototype BMW continues to run very effectively in 6th position, even though the team car is back behind the wall. We don't know if it will return. The number 1 car continues to be a very effective proposition, and the battle, as expected in GT2 between the Porsche and the Vipers, continues to be intense as well. That too apparently seesawing with the pit stops. You're getting better fuel economy out of the Porsches, a little bit better speed out of the Vipers. In the end, it seems to be fairly equal.
Yes, and that French-run Ferrari is still going very strongly. the Bouillon Sospiri car. That's up in 9th place now. It's always run in the top 10. That's impressed me a lot.
And also breaking into the top 10 for the first time, one of the Yost open cockpit Porsches, currently in the 10th spot, is the number 8 car that had Pierre-Henri Raffanel, I believe, still behind the wheel. James Weaver started, and Dave Murray, who we talked with earlier, will be next in the car. So they're having a very consistent run.
We just received an official communication from the timing and scoring area, and it's Mercedes number 35, reason out of the race. It says reason not communicated. You know, the cloak of secrecy went down with that door, and we're probably not going to find out at least for several hours, and then it'll be an official answer, not a real one.
That's right. The publicity campaign always fires up in big order at a major event like this. You're watching the 4th place Toyota. We'll be back. We are back at Le Mans, and take a look in the lower left-hand corner there. There is the official clock for the Automobile Club l'Ouest here, and as you can see, it's about 5:15 here in France. And for the car that is sitting right there, they've been parked there for the better part of the last hour. That is the number 50 Viper, and we have seen just off to the side here that Mr. Patrick Huysman, the driver, is still in serious conversation with some of the stewards. He has walked back, and you can see him now bending down into the cockpit of the car, trying to solve some problem. And boy, I'll tell you, we're talking the electronics. That's black art magic. It is so tough to deal with. Now, development with the BMW. We saw it go behind the garage doors. Calvin, what's up?
Well, the assistant car is in right now with Steve Sober behind the wheel of the number 1 machine. This car's run pretty well. Obviously, Christensen started the car, did a couple of stints, turned over to Steve Sober, and so far, this looks like a routine start. They're getting the fuel in right now. I'm not sure if they're going to go for tires. In fact, they are. Car will now go in the air. But an update on the other car. Apparently, Chicago pitted because he had a right front wheel bearing going down. And that was probably a result of the incident that Martini got into. And as Sam can probably testify to, the problem when you have a wheel bearing going out allows the actual rotor to sort of like flap around a little bit, and it kicks the pads back, so you lose the brake pedal as well, Sam.
It's a mess. That's a great description of it, and obviously it means that one thing that goes wrong multiplies into several things, which is the sort of thing that happens to when you lose a tire and damage suspension and oil cooler. So sometimes the first thing that goes wrong isn't the only thing that goes wrong.
And Calvin, quickly, I was just curious. We continue to see those BMWs when they leave the pits. They really are aggressive getting out of the pits. Is it that crucial with those cars to have the revs up that high?
Well, possibly. They don't want to stall it. That one wasn't quite as violent as the one that Steve did on his first exit out of the pits. But, I mean, I was always told when I was driving a car in endurance event is to take care of it. And a lot of wheel spin like that out of the pits can actually do more damage and more stress on the car than you actually put on the car out on the track.
Absolutely. I recall a race. John Alesi and Michael Schumacher obviously would witness that. Davey, you've been there before. No, I
didn't get Davey there. Yeah, I just wonder though if part of it is the noise. It's got a fabulous V12 engine in, the one that's been in the McLaren. It makes a lot of noise when it leaves, so it makes you think it's going out of there really quickly. Well, the car is currently in 5th place. It is still running very strongly, but we have a new leader again. Alan McNish, that car, the 25 Porsche, has now gone into the lead, but now, of course, it comes into a pit stop, and then it relinquishes it.
It is that type of seesaw battle. The pit stops are really where most of the lead changes are occurring right now, and one would suspect that. You're not going to be leaning on each other on the track too much at this stage. That's safe a little later in the race. But strategy plays such a great key in this type of racing, and they're deep into this pit stop right now.
Yeah, indeed. I did say that was the McNish car. It's not the McNish car. It's the other car, the Jörg Muller, Louis Alts and Bob Wallach car. That has been going very strongly, and as the race has gone into its 3rd hour, it really has moved up, and so that is the current leader, but it will relinquish it now.
Yeah, that car was in 6th place and running, obviously to team orders, quite off the pace of the McNish car.
They are hustling to get that pit stop completed and get that car back out on track. Bob Wallach must like the developments right now. This is his 50th 24-hour race, if you include Daytona and Spa. He has won 9 of them. One he has never won is Le Mans. His car is leading. I wonder if he's comfortable or nervous. We'll be back. We are back at Le Mans, the number 27 Toyota currently running in 4th spot of Ukyo Katayama in the pits. Work goes on, and they seem to be having a struggle with the left rear tire on that car. They've had it on and off and on and off a number of times. It pitted in 4th place with about a 35-second lead over the number 26 machine, so they are in danger of losing that position at least. So we'll be watching that. However, the car that we were just talking about leading and having a very solid run is the Porsche, and there is one man in particular who directs that program, and he's standing by with Davy Jones.
Yes, I'm down here with Herbert Ampere. Is everything going to plan? Nothing out of the ordinary? I see that the car just took the lead briefly before you had that last pit stop.
Yeah, absolutely. We were racing according to schedule, and so far we were happy. There isn't any single little problem. I hope we can go on like that. That's fine.
So the Porsche reliability lives on.
Excuse me?
The Porsche reliability lives on.
Yeah, we will see. We just have started, huh? Let's talk about tomorrow.
I will ask you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much.
I would suspect he'd be interested to know that the car that car of his is duking it out with, number 28, the Toyota, just looped it, and it looked like the approach to the Ford chicane over there, Andrew. So that was a bit of a moment.
Yeah, I think that Eric Hellery is at the wheel, and he's won this race in the past, but obviously a mistake there.
First kind of chink in the armor for Toyota, that slow pit stop and then a spin.
Let's take a look at it, Sam. Oh, he got it real loose under braking.
Boy, clumsy error.
I think what happened there, he left his braking until he was past that GT2 Porsche, and then he was away, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you might say, well, why?
Oh, the GT2 car doing that Toyota a huge favor.
Boy, did he ever. You might say, well, why would a guy, as we see it again, brake so late? Well, one reason is you do want to keep the regularity of your lap times. You know, you just don't want the lap sheets to show your name with a slower lap next to it. You know, so one of despite all rational things where you know you ought to be taking it easy, he could have dusted that Porsche on the exit of the turn, but it would have added a couple or 3 seconds to his lap. He didn't want that.
Be interesting to be listening to what Eric Hellery was saying as he was sliding backward in that Porsche. It looked like it was about to rip the car's nose off of it after that car had led for so long. Obviously, not only did that GT2 Porsche avoid hitting it, but he came dangerously close to those tires as he skipped through that. He got away with a couple of them there.
Yeah.
Let's just remind ourselves that last year a McLaren BMW finished second in this race. Now, I'm just interested to note there are 2 now private McLarens in this race, and they are moving up the field, and the 17th place car is now the number 40 car, which is a very interesting car because it's got an American driver we haven't mentioned.
Yes, Bill Oberlin, I believe, behind the wheel, of course, who has been very impressive in winning the GT3 championship in sports car for BMW last year, and got a late nod to replace a driver in that car, and has a great opportunity here at Le Mans. We'll talk about him a little bit more. Welcome back to Le Mans. The pit stop for the number 7 Yost Porsche completed. Yannick Damas, and now behind the wheel.
I'll tell you one thing, you're seeing the intensity of this battle. All the cars at the same time on the track are going fast, and it's luring people into going faster than they might really want to go.
All right, and the number 8 car, that is being brought in at this stage. That is Pierre-Henri Raffanel behind the wheel. He's diving in, and Davy Jones is there.
Number 7 Yost, it was a fairly routine pit stop. It was the first time that Yannick Damas will be out for the race. It was a little slow in the driver change. He was limping a little bit on his leg, but it didn't really seem to be any problem. And he's out there now for the number 8 Yost. David Murray's going out for the first time. We had the first 2 drivers do their stints, and you know, again, it just seems like a fairly routine stop.
Problem with the driver change there. It appeared there was something almost like a belt had fallen down on the floor, and one of the mechanics had to get in there and deal with that. Meanwhile, the number 28 Toyota, which spun recently, is in the pits. Calvin?
Well, Eric Hellery is explaining to the team manager here what went wrong, and they're doing a routine check. First thing they did was put fuel in, so they're obviously topped up when he does leave the pit again. They're changing the tires. Good chance he flat spotted those, but he's indicating there was maybe a bit of a problem. I mean, it did look a little strange. I saw it on the big screen here at the end of the pit lane, and he certainly locked it up, and then it turned around the other way on him, so he may have just overcooked it under braking, but maybe he does have a balance problem with the car, and they're certainly going to investigate this before they put him back on the track, guys.
and number 8 Murray out of the pits, and you'll notice that big sort of block that's taped onto the back of his helmet. David drives World Sports Cars in the United States, but they don't have the type of sustained speeds that you see at a track like this. I think that's being used to somewhat close the air up behind the helmet and eliminate some buffeting that he might be experiencing.
Don't you think for a moment that he isn't experiencing an emotional moment driving out into his very first Le Mans, too?
Indeed, a very special moment for David Murray. And Davey, you've got some information?
Well, you're exactly right. The driver change was a little bit slow because the belt did slip down behind, and they just couldn't get him strapped in quite as quick as they would like. But the extra pad added to the back of his helmet is just trying to create some of the buffing that you have in these prototype cars. The air comes in and it flows so much around the back of your helmet that going down the Mulsanne straight at 214, 215 mile an hour, it gets your head razzled around just a little bit. So that's what they're trying to do with the tape there. But, you know, other than that, David had stalled it. You know, the intensity when they tell you to fire up the car and let's go, let's get out of there. You know, the driver change was a little bit slow, and David started up the car and he tried to leave a little bit too quick and he stalled the engine. But, you know, other than that, everything's fairly routine, and I think the Yost camp is fairly happy with the way things are going so far.
Fairly intense debriefing, Davey, going on right now with Raffanel.
Yeah, Raffanel there. And that 28 car has been in the pits for quite a long time now. I just wonder what the problem down there is. The car which, when it came into the pits after 53 laps, was actually leading. And Kelvin, I think we can get a pit report now.
Well, it's obviously a braking problem. That's the way it looked on the track, and in fact, they're now working on the right corner of the car. There's a problem with the caliper there in the right area. They're trying to get me out of there as we speak, and looks like they're doing work on the brakes all the way around. I'm not sure if they're going for a pad change exactly. You can see the mechanics there with the ratchet wrench. They're working on something. I'm not sure to what extent they're going to work on these brakes. And this had the bleed bottle out, like maybe he was losing brake pedal itself, as in it was going down too far. But the other thing is with this ABS system, remember Martin said early on, they do have the availability of ABS, but they haven't been using it because they've not been happy with how it works. Now, whether that means it's off for the whole race, or whether it's a switch they can actually put it back in, I'm not sure. But Eric obviously had some problems, and severe enough that they're thoroughly investigating. Meanwhile, one of the other sister cars is actually in right behind him. The number 27 machine has brought their car in, and this is going to be tough for these guys when they get through with this stop. And I'm not sure if there's a problem with this car. So after about 3 or 4 hours here, everything looked rosy for the Toyota team, and suddenly we saw a lengthy stop for the 29 car, and now the 27 car is in as well, and problems are starting to crop up.
Serious lack of urgency, Calvin, for that 27 car. They got the door open, and it looks like they're just chatting. Nothing really other than that going on.
Well, it looks like it might be a gearbox problem. They've got it in gear, they're rolling it backwards and forwards, so again, it might be a driveline problem. He may be stuck in a gear. Now it looks like he may be in neutral. They're actually able to free roll it, but that sounds like it's a gearbox problem.
That's the sixth place car.
Yeah, and we just saw Akira Katayama there, I think. They aren't possibly changing the discs, are they, on the rear there on the 28 car?
Well, they're just bleeding them, Andrew, right now. I mean, they've not disconnected the calipers to get the discs off, and they've now got the bleed bottles connected on this machine. And meanwhile, there's no point in me sticking my head into that Japanese car because I won't understand a word of what they're saying. But a lot of work going on the rear brakes on the number 28 machine, which is a shame because it's running so strong.
Well, I would suspect that if you've got a problem with pressure in the fluid, it can affect the bias, and that's why those rears may have locked up. We'll try and answer that question for you when we come back to Le Mans.